arresting people for political speech is completely antithetical to how this country was founded. And this is kind of what pisses me off about MAGA, because they want to selectively enforce the Constitution. Look, I don't agree with Khalil. He's a liberal, he's a progressive. However, we have to be intelligent enough to understand that if they take one person's rights away, it's just a matter of time until all of our rights get taken away. It starts with a green card holder, then the next thing you know, it's going to be U.S. citizens. That is why I protect all speech, because I understand that once the government starts to take your rights, you don't get them back. Before I jump in here, let's go ahead and cover Mahmud Khil first, real fast, because this is a big deal.
For that breaking news, a federal judge has just ordered the release of Columbia University graduate and legal permanent resident Mahmud Khil. CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen has been following all this and joins us.
For those of you that don't know, Mahmud Khil was a pro-Palestine activist, green card holder, Columbia student that was in charge of facilitating conversation between the pro-Palestine supporters and the school, the university. And, you know, they try to illustrate him as a pro-Hamas sympathizer and all this other bullshit. But in reality, the guy actually was the representative. He went to Shabbat with a couple of the Jewish students there. And, you know, they unfairly try to label him a terrorist. And the guy ended up getting released, but they picked him up on immigration charges for his protests, okay? So what I'll do is I kind of have a tweet that I made about this, but let's go ahead and play this video first, and I'll kind of respond to it.
Well, that's right. There's been kind of a ping pong back and forth between the Justice Department and Khalil's attorneys for the last week or so, after a judge in New Jersey said that Khalil last week could not be detained on a declaration from Marco Rubio that said that his remaining in the United States was a threat to national security.
Yes, because there was an immigration statute, guys, that they used. The immigration statute that they used against Mahmud Khil to justify arresting him and putting him into deportation proceedings was basically a statute that says any alien in the United States that makes it harder for the Secretary of State to, you know, conduct diplomatic affairs with foreign countries, that alien is subject to removal. But it's a very ambiguous and rarely, if ever, used law within the Immigration Nationality Act, or INA. That's the statute that they relied upon.
The judge did not explicitly order his release out of all the charges, which is what was at the center of conversation today. There are allegations by the Department of Justice and Department of Homeland Security that there was some misstatement of facts on his green card application years ago, which is the secondary charge, and the Department of Justice and DHS held him for over a week on those charges, saying that, yes, they understood the judge's order that they did not need to release him on one, but they were going to hold him on the other charge. The judge held a hearing today, in which the Department of Justice and attorneys simply had no evidence to why Khalil remaining or was a threat to the community if he were to be released, asked for additional evidence of any kind of violent protest that he had been a part of. As we know, really, there has been no explanation, not just in this case, but in many others, of what actual violence these students have taken or calls for actual violence these students have said in their protests at Columbia University or other schools. The judge has ordered Mahmud Khalil's release effective immediately once he submits a paper order. To such extent, he's currently detained in Louisiana at an ICE detention.
And in Louisiana, that detention facility is one of the biggest detention facilities and one of the main places they deport aliens from in the United States.
Center. This has been really the rallying cry, and he was the first student who was detained by the Trump administration, and really this complete...
They arrested a bunch of others as well.
It's a full loss by the Trump administration, who has continued to try to hold students for their pro-Palestinian or pro-Gaza stances or anti-Israel remarks during protests over the last couple of years since October 7th. And in every case, the Department of Justice has not won legal arguments as to detaining these people as their immigration proceedings have played out.
And Jake, as we understand, it could take a few hours in order for him to actually walk out. Is that really the end of all of this? Is that, you know, this is a case that has captured so much attention, not only here in the United States, but around the world. Is this really essentially it now?
It's certainly not the end. What we actually heard from Khalil's attorneys in a different case, the attorneys said that they actually received a call or a text during today's proceedings saying that the immigration judge in Louisiana had found Khalil removable because of the national security declaration. So the Department of Homeland Security continuing to try to deport a legal permanent resident of the United States. That proceeding will continue to play out in Louisiana, but Khalil is likely to be returned to New York and New Jersey sometime soon. The Department of Justice also asked for a 1-week stay of this order so that it could appeal to a higher appeals court.
So basically, he's being released on his own recognizance pending his immigration case.
The judge denied that, but the Department of Justice attorney said they're likely to appeal almost immediately. He will still be allowed, likely to be out of detention while this plays out.
Jake, thank you very much for this insight on this breaking news. We really appreciate it.
Okay, so how the fuck did we get here, right? Let's go back. Now, a lot of you guys are probably wondering, how the fuck did we get here where people are getting arrested for speech? Well, in order for this to make sense, guys, you have to understand where this came from. And a lot of people don't talk about it now, but I'm one of the few people that's been talking about this. This is called Project Esther, okay? A national strategy to combat anti-Semitism. This was put out last year, okay? Now, you don't see this thing mentioned as much because obviously, you know, it's controversial. But basically what Project Esther was a comprehensive plan, right? And the Heritage Foundation, just so you guys know, is a conservative think tank run by who? Yeah. Anyway, and in this document, they pretty much illustrate how they would combat anti-Semitism. They would utilize law enforcement, intelligence agencies, and the full brunt of the government's force to combat anti-Semitism in the United States, including the arrest and detainment and deportation of college students that are pro-Israel, which they try to conflate, pro-Palestine, which they try to conflate as pro-Hamas, okay? And Mahmud Khil was the first student that they basically tested this project on, okay? Now, if you notice, the media is reluctant to use Project Esther because it's an extremely controversial project, kind of like Project 2025, by the way. The Heritage Foundation also crafted Project 2025, which was a hot talking point last year during the last campaign. So that's another reason why they're not talking about Project Esther. But if you look at Project Esther, a lot of the things that are going on now in the Trump administration are things that were pulled from Project Esther. And one of them specifically was going after college students that are critical of Israel and the United States foreign policy, okay? That's very important.
Falcon punch!
And Mahmud Khil was the first person that was arrested. Another big case that also happened was a woman up in Massachusetts, Tufts University, was also arrested by ICE for writing an op-ed being critical of her school for not conducting the procedure of a boycott properly against Israel. And they went and they arrested her as well, okay? And obviously, this sent shockwaves all across the country because you have college students that are legally here on F1 visas, attending school, getting arrested for political speech. Well, that's a problem, okay? Whether you're pro-Israel or not, arresting people for political speech is completely antithetical to how this country was founded. And I wrote a tweet about this, and I want to show it to you guys real fast. We can talk about it. Because I actually wrote a tweet saying this is a W for free speech. And I had a bunch of retards on the right trying to say he's an illegal alien, deport him. So this is what I responded. All the retards that are mad Mahmud Khil was released from ICE detention need to realize this was a big W for America and the First Amendment. Why? Because Khil, a lawful permanent resident, was arrested and put into deportation proceedings for political speech critical of Israel. This is unconstitutional. There's established case law that aliens still have the First Amendment rights. Khil is a liberal I don't agree with, but I'm smart enough to know if his rights get violated, I'm next. Freedom of speech must be protected whether you like or agree with the ideas or not. And I went ahead and, cited two cases, Bridges and Wixon, right? Bridges versus Wixon, 1945. And the reason why this case is important basically is Harry Bridges, in a photo taken by San Francisco News Call Bulletin, a chairman and strike committee during the 1934 West Coast Longman Shore Strike. In Bridges versus Wixon, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the U.S. Attorney General could not deport Bridges, an immigrant from Australia who had entered the United States in 1920 for his affiliation with the Communist Party. The court said legal aliens had First Amendment rights. Well, guess what? This is literally a mirror image of Mahmud Khil, because now we replace the word communism and the Red Scare with the war on terrorism. Okay? So that's one, right? This comes from Free Speech Center. So this is case law, established case law, that green card holders are in fact protected via the First Amendment for political speech. Then, here's some more stuff. Legal aliens enjoy First Right Amendments. Once situated fully in the United States, aliens enjoy First Amendment rights. As Justice Francis Murphy described the law in his concurrence in Bridges versus Wixon, the Bill of Rights is a futile authority for the alien seeking admission for the first time to these shores. But once an alien lawfully enters and resides in the country, he becomes invested with the rights guaranteed by the Constitution to all people within our borders. In that case, the court reversed the deportation of labor activist Harry Bridges, an Australian, because of statements he had made that prosecutors charged indicated affiliation with the Communist Party. Writing for the court, Justice William O. Douglas concluded that freedom of speech and the press is afforded aliens residing in this country. So here's another thing. I'll take it a step further for you guys. Okay? Not only are legal aliens protected by the First Amendment, but even illegal aliens are protected by the First Amendment, okay? Now, I know what some of you are going to say. Myron, no way. How's that possible? Blah, blah, blah. Let me explain. If fucking Jorge, right, is sitting at the Home Depot and ICE decides to show up and arrest him, right? And as he's getting arrested, he says, fuck ICE, fuck Donald Trump, I hate this country, this government is corrupt, you guys sit here and arrest me, meanwhile you send a bunch of money over to Israel, blah, 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 starts criticizing America, right? Whatever it may be. You know, you guys can't even have universal health care, whatever. Starts criticizing the government, right? As he's being arrested by ICE. Let's say hypothetically, he beats the case. Immigration judge orders that he gets arrested, put in deportation proceedings, right? And an immigration judge allows him to stay. Well, guess what? They can't come back and say, well, you know what? You were an illegal alien when you made those comments. We're going to go ahead and arrest you. No, because even though he's an illegal alien and he made comments that were critical of the government when he was being arrested and he's not lawfully here, they can't charge him with that. Why? Because even illegal aliens have freedom of speech. Okay? Now, obviously, you're testing the waters, right? By doing this as an illegal alien, getting into hot political topics. But I'm describing this to you guys so you understand that freedom of speech in the First Amendment applies to everyone. Think about it. If an illegal alien commits a murder, what happens? They still have the right to due process. They still get tried for murder. They still get a lawyer. They still get all the rights of a U.S. citizen. So when people say stupid shit like, oh, he's an illegal alien, he has no rights, deport him. No, that's what sets us apart from other countries, retard. We have due process here. We have habeas corpus, okay? This is literally what sets us apart from all the fucking banana republic countries. So, though legal aliens, green card holders, visa holders, etc., have the right to free speech, illegal aliens also have the right to free speech. And that was the example I wanted to give you guys so you guys truly understand that even if this guy, Jorge, gets arrested at the Home Depot and says, fuck ICE, I hate you guys, the U.S. government's corrupt, and then he goes and sees an immigration judge, and the immigration judge rules that he could stay, guess what? He ain't going to get arrested for those comments he made. That is freedom of speech in the United States, my friends, okay? Anyway, so very important that you guys understand this. And due process is for everyone, right? And this is kind of what pisses me off about MAGA, because they want to selectively enforce the Constitution. Look, I don't agree with Khalil. He's a liberal, he's a progressive, whatever. However, we have to be intelligent enough to understand that if they take one person's rights away, it's just a matter of time until all of our rights get taken away. It starts with a fucking green card holder, then the next thing you know, it's going to be U.S. citizens. Think about it, guys. You don't know this. A lot of you guys don't know this. They were trying to pass an anti-Semitism bill that would basically make it where U.S. citizens can get penalized or face fines for being critical of Israel. Did you guys know that? Why did they pass that bill? The reason why they were thinking about proposing and passing that bill is because they saw that they were able to successfully arrest and begin deportation proceedings for Mahmud Khil. So as the government takes your rights away and succeeds in taking your rights away, unlawfully of course, they become more emboldened to continue taking your rights away. And this is why so many people on the right are fucking retards. I call them MAGA-tards, because they're like, yeah, send it back, he's a legal alien. Retard, hold on. Our forefathers traversed the Atlantic Ocean from England to come to the United States, battling scurvy, really bad sea conditions, sickness and death, fighting Indians off, right? To create the United States. And when they finally created the United States and they wrote the fucking paper that would govern this land, the first thing they said that we need to protect is what? Freedom of speech, motherfuckers. And then the Second Amendment was the guns to protect that freedom of speech, motherfuckers. So we need to take that shit seriously. Okay? We can't sit here and be like, oh yeah, well, you know, we don't like you, so no free speech for you. No. That is why I protect all speech, because I understand that once the government starts to take your rights, you don't get them back. You understand, guys? Once you lose a right to the government, you don't get it back. And like I said before, this wasn't widely reported on the news, but I want to bring this to your guys' fucking attention. Remember this. After they successfully arrested Mahmud Khil and put him into deportation proceedings, there was a bill that was passed that was going to go after U.S. citizens for speech critical of Israel. Thank God they didn't push the bill forward because it was so unpopular. But ask yourself, why the fuck did they even try? They tried because they became emboldened. Until they got a bunch of pushback and people said, fuck that. You're seriously going to try to pass this bill? Fuck you guys. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene and some other people fought the bill and didn't even let it make it up. But again, the fact that they even had the balls or the audacity to pass this bill in the first place, draft it up and try to push it up the fucking file, or push it up the ranks, that tells you guys where their mind was at. So this is a big W. Whether you agree with Mahmud Khil or not, whether you're pro-Palestine or pro-Israel, it doesn't matter. The point is that freedom of speech was preserved. And everybody gets a W when freedom of speech is preserved, even if it's speech that you don't like. All right? I think you guys are high IQ enough in the chat to understand the importance of preserving free speech, unlike a lot of magatards on fucking Twitter.